you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of Babergh Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Simon Dowling and I'll be chairing the meeting today. This meeting will be broadcast on our YouTube channel and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole meeting will be recorded except where there are confidential or exempt items. If any member of the public attending the meeting objects to being filmed, please advise us immediately and we'll ensure you're not included in the filming. Members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. If you intend to do so, please could you inform the committee clerk. Can I please request that mobile phones are on silent or switched off and your laptop speakers are switched to silent. I'll give you a moment to do that. If you hear the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately via a fire exit, not through the atrium, and make your way to the assembly point at Alderman Park, which is the other side of Ipswich Town Football Club. Some introductions. We have with us today our Area Planning Manager, Mark Russell, our Legal Advisor, Ian Dupre. Today's case officers are Adam Lockwood and Finlay Mackenzie. Our Governance Officer today is Alicia Norman, who's clerking the committee. And as special guests, we have Michelle Gordon, who's Head of Economy and Business. Is that right? Yes. Okay, good. And Liam Healy, who is here from Suffolk County Council Highways. Welcome. So moving to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence and substitutions. Do we have any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies this morning from Councillors Grandin and Councillor Potter, and we have no substitutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, to receive declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other registerable and non-registerable interests by members. Are there any interests to declare, please? Councillor Wyman and Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Chairman. May I declare interest under item 8B, DC 2503860 for Chatham Community Centre. I am an executive trustee of the Hintlesham and Chatham Community Council, and I will leave the room when the item is heard.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you. Mine is under 8A DC 2504984. My husband's aunt and cousins own Bridge Farm Barns, but I don't know the applicant, and I've never visited Lavenham Falconry, but just to say they own that site. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any others? Okay, super. Item 3, declarations of lobbying. Now, I can make a declaration on behalf of all of us that we've been lobbied by email regarding item 8A, the land at Audley End. Is there any other lobbying to declare, please? None? Thank you very much. Declarations of personal site visits to any of the sites in today's applications, please. None? Thank you. Item 5. Confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of July. The minutes are on pages 5 to 10 of your agenda. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes, please? None? Good. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Osborne, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Register, thank you, and we'll now have a vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress on ModGov. Councillor Register. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That makes 8 votes for, so that's unanimous.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, item 6, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 7, site inspections. Are there any requests for site inspections, please?
No request, Chair.
Thank you. Which now brings us to our main business on item 8. So 8A is application DC 2504984, land at Audley End on Melford Road in Lawshall. The papers start on page 11 in your agenda pack. Councillor Holt is ward member. So can I check, Councillor Holt, will you remain on committee or speak as ward member, please?
I intend to remain on committee.
Thank you very much. So I'm now going to invite the case officer for this application, Adam Lockwood, to introduce the application to the committee.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. This application is DC 2504984, a full planning application at Audley End in Lawshall for the change of use from arable agricultural land to a birds of prey display, experience and small reptile exhibit, including visitor parking, aviaries, reptile and reception buildings. The purpose of this presentation is to provide a visual and spoken accompaniment to the current committee report and is not designed to supplement the information contained in that report. It's intended to provide members with a springboard for discussion of the merits of the planning application. All planning decisions are to be taken after regard has been given to all relevant material planning considerations and relevant representations, of which this is but one. For a transparency statement, whilst an application of this type would normally be determined under delegated authority, it is presented to committee today for determination as the application has been deemed controversial by the Chief Planning Officer. I haven't provided you with physical table papers today, instead I'll give you a verbal update. Following publication of the report, we've received 8 additional representations. These representations were from individuals who'd already previously commented on the application. Thus, the number of representations reported has increased from 50 to 58, but the number of objections has been maintained. No new points other than those previously raised are contained within these representations. The main planning issues here are the impact upon the surrounding highway network with inadequate capacity to support this type of use, as has been raised through consultation. Previous concerns from Suffolk County Council highways have been overcome and they are supportive of the scheme. And compliance with the development plan, specifically LP12 and the Lawshall Neighbourhood Plan. I have identified there is a degree of conflict with LP12. I will touch on this later, but LP12 requires that tourism uses be in sustainable locations and be accessible by a range of transport measures. Given the location and indeed the rural nature of Babergh, that is hard to come by often. So we have an aerial view of the site outlined in hatched. So we have Audley End, Melford Road running north to south just east of the site. And we're surrounded by a few houses and arable fields. This is a site location plan, so it is a small portion of the site with other areas in blue to remain undeveloped. Access is to be gained from Melford Road. This is a constraints map, relatively few constraints. There are no designations listed. There is a listed building further up north, not shown on the screen. We just have one public right-of-way down south, as shown in the green. Sorry, and then we just have photos of the site. It is currently just an undeveloped arable field, so there is not admittedly much to look at, but this is a look from Melford Road across the site looking west. Sorry, there's a delay because I think all the pictures are coming up. Looking northwest. Then this is back along the highway. Then we have one of the adjacent dwellings. I believe this is Hurdle's Barn. And another view of the dwelling which would sit opposite the site. This is Audley End House. Again, this is the southern neighbour of Hurdle's Barn and sits opposite the site. Another view of the site and looking south along the highway. Looking southwest along the site. Again, looking west, looking northwest. This is from when I stood in the centre of the site, looking down back towards the highway and to the other corner of the site. And finally, another view of the houses in the setting of the site. So this is the current plan of the site. As mentioned, there is no development. There is a power line running above the site, as shown by the black line in the centre. This is the proposed development. So we have a small collection of buildings on the southern portion. The northwestern portion, is to be a land left undeveloped for a flying experience zone. A few buildings sort of dotted around the site, and then sort of lots of tree planting and hedgerows and all of that stuff with soft landscaping. A closer look at the site, so they are to kind of be set around a trail where guests will sort of navigate the site. Again, we have the access onto Melford Road shown on the right-hand side of the screen. These are examples of the buildings, so all of them are to be single-storey, relatively small scale. I believe they're to be clad with a metal roofing, if I remember correctly. All relatively low-scale minor buildings. And then the top of the picture shows a site section, so all of the buildings are to remain below the tree line, falling naturally with the gradient of the land. And then we have a demonstration that visibility displays onto Melford Road, which is 30 miles an hour, can be achieved. Then I've covered off the representations here. So the representations, I've included those which have received 10 or more comments. The main one was the impact upon the ecology/wildlife. We have consulted with colleagues in Place Services Ecology who have raised no objection subject to condition. Increased traffic highway issue. Suffolk County Council, as the lead local highway authority, are content and support the proposal. They have noted that the impact upon the highway network would not be severe, and severe is key in this instance as per the NPPF, which I will touch on later in the presentation. A particular point of contention surrounds passing places. Initially, it was suggested that private driveways could be used as informal passing places. Neither Babergh Mid-Suffolk nor Suffolk County Council, as the lead local highway authority, endorse this approach. However, it is still evidence that removing the accountability of these informal passing places, the road widens approximately every 90 metres or so. There are passing places, I've got it written down. So from the north of the site at approximately 87 metres interval, and south of the site at approximately 95 metres intervals. This is below the government guidance that says there must be a passing place every 200 metres or so on a single track 30 mile an hour road. Not all sections of Melford Road are also single track. There is a varying width from 4 metres to 4.8 metres. Inadequate access. The site accesses the highway network on a section of the road which is 30 miles an hour. It's been evidenced that safe and suitable access and visibility displays can be secured. Suffolk County Council, as the lead local highway authority, are content and support the proposal. Landscape impact. Again, we consulted with Place Services Landscape on this. They have acknowledged that there is no major concerns regarding the principal development, and any recommendations are secured by condition. Out of character, so I've given note to the Lawshall Neighbourhood Plan Character Assessment, which classifies this as Area 2 residential roads. An extract says it's stunning and treasured views over wide expanse of farmland towards Hartus to the west. I do acknowledge that this would introduce development, new built form to landscape. However, it seeks to integrate itself through soft landscaping and retaining the open character. These are low-lying buildings. I don't believe they would cause any too much visual intrusion. Conflict with the neighbourhood plan. So Lawshall Neighbourhood Parish Council have identified neighbourhood plan policies LWL 17, which is artificial lighting, and LWL 21, which is new businesses and employment, as possible points of contention. LWL 17 could be overcome through a condition, as I have recommended. LWL 21 gives broad support to proposals for small-scale leisure or tourism activities or other forms of commercial, employment-related development or agricultural-related development of a scale and nature appropriate to the countryside location. And then it continues on to say it must be of a size and scale that does not adversely affect the character, highways, infrastructure, residential amenity, environment and landscape character as identified in the neighbourhood plan character assessment, and I'm content that it does not. Inadequate parking provision. So during the course of the application, parking provision has been increased on the site. Suffolk County Council as the lead local highway authority are satisfied with the parking arrangement, and I have proposed a condition limiting visitors and vehicle numbers at any one time to ensure that the parking remains sufficient. Loss of outlook. There is no legal right to a view. A noise management plan is proposed to be secured via condition, but I also have employed a pragmatic approach. This is bird noise, which in a countryside setting I do not consider to be particularly disturbing. Inadequate public transport provision. This is what I noted from LP12. I do acknowledge that this is a point of contention. However, we must consider the location that we're in. Babergh is not best served by public transport, and indeed, I do not think this use would be better suited to a more sensible location, such as our larger towns. Just given the nature of it, I think a countryside location is much better fitting for it. Loss of open space. The site is currently not open space. Whilst there may be an accessible field through the lack of fencing, there is no public right of access to it, and it is a private arable field. Light pollution. This is proposed to be controlled by condition to lessen the impact as far as practicable. Loss of privacy. All the buildings would be kept at single storey only and would not introduce any concerns of overlooking or impact on privacy. Alongside those, I've received 3 neutral representations that included a compliance with the legislation, consideration of roads and employment opportunities, and with these 13 representations of support, which included educational experience, conservation, support for a small local business. So Lavenham Falconry is currently at Monk's Ely and is looking to relocate due to changes to legislation requiring aviary sizes. Animal welfare, negligible noise, non-impact on surrounding ecology, minimal landscape impact, and controlled lighting. These are the policies that I have identified as the scheme engages with in the joint local plan. So we have SPO3, which seeks to direct development to within the existing settlement boundaries. This is not within one, however, I will speak on that in a second. Again, we have SPO7, which are tourism policy, LP12, tourism and leisure, landscape, historic environment, design, flood risk, sustainable travel. So the principal development I've considered is acceptable because SPO3, SPO7 and LP12 can be used jointly to overcome this concern, despite being located outside the settlement boundary. Again, there is an element of conflict with LP12, which requires that sites must be accessible by public transport and facilitate walking and cycling, whilst providing appropriate parking and access and ensuring the associated traffic movements would not compromise highway safety. There is proposed to be cycle parking on site. However, given the location of the development, it is not accessible by a range of transport measures, instead reliant on private vehicles. However, this type of use is not suited for, in my opinion, for urban locations which have better public transport. Therefore, officers feel justified to depart from the plan in this regard. And then we also have the Lawshall neighbourhood plan and the character assessment, which I've identified these policies from it. And I have considered this alongside the joint local plan. So we have LWR1, which is similar to SPO3, which is a spatial strategy. We have natural environment, biodiversity, design, flooding, artificial lighting, new businesses, and employment. This is an extract of LWR21, which is the new businesses and employment policy. It requires outside of settlement boundaries, proposals will be supported where they relate to small-scale leisure or tourism activities or other forms of commercial employment-related development or agricultural-related development of a scale and nature appropriate to a countryside location, and it can be satisfactorily demonstrated. It says, where possible, business developments should be sited in existing buildings or on areas previously developed, and be of a size scale which does not adversely affect the character, highways, infrastructure, residential amenity, environment and landscape character as defined in the neighbourhood plan character assessment. This is a little bit more conversation which I've added on being outside the settlement boundary. So SPO3 requires outside of settlement boundaries, development will normally only be permitted where it is in accordance with a made neighbourhood plan, which in this instance I consider that it is, or it is in accordance with one of the policies of the plan listed within Table 5 of the supporting text. I admit that is small, but that is Table 5 in full, taken from our joint local plan. We have SPO 7.1 and 2 at the top, which require engagement with LP12, and then we have LP12. So through these policies, we can support development outside of the settlement boundary. And then I've touched on here again about the highways point. The MPPF 2024 requires that development proposals be considered alongside paragraph 116. Development should only be prevented or refused on highway grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety or the residual cumulative impacts on the road network following mitigation would be severe, taking into account all reasonable future scenarios. The above phrasing is key in this instance. Whilst it is acknowledged that there may be a degree of highway impact, it is not unacceptable, nor would the residual cumulative impact be severe. Thus, the MPPF would not support a refusal on these grounds based upon the assessment from Suffolk County Council as the lead highway authority. Therefore, my recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to conditions. There are a number of conditions which are all included within the committee report, which you all have.
Thank you very much, Adam. Very comprehensive as ever. So if there are any questions members have regarding detail or further clarification, we'll take those now. Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lockwood, you said that visitor numbers would be limited. How is it proposed to stop people turning up?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so we are proposing a condition requiring visitor numbers to be limited. I suppose in a sense, apart from having the applicant's agreement, we wouldn't physically be able to stop them. However, it would be a case that we could investigate via enforcement if we did choose to employ that condition, if they were exceeding their visitor numbers. There wouldn't be a physical mean that we could put in place to prevent this. However, we just have to enforce against it should that issue arise.
So, in fact, it can't be enforced, really. It's the idea that the applicant will limit visitor numbers. How do you stop people turning up at your attraction if in high season? Will these people not just end up parking on roads and residential areas?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So the business model that the applicant have is that they are to be pre-booked only. They're not to be a sort of open site. So it would just be through managing bookings and... Sorry, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Chair. This is, I need some clarification really. On the map of the site that you showed, there seemed to be the area where you've got where they'll be flying the birds, and then the aviaries, and then a hedgerow, and then is there a piece of land that's not being used? Is that right? So, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, is it possible to have the presentation back up quickly, please? But yes, you are correct, Councillor. I will... Oh, sorry, I've gone the wrong way. Sorry, Beth. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, so... that one. So yes, we do have the red line is where the site is to be. The flying experience to the north. The blue site is to receive no development. It is in the landowner's control, but it is not proposed that any development or any use would be on that site, on that portion of the site, I should say.
Okay, thank you. So that will be like a buffer between the site and those houses?
Yes. Yeah.
And at the moment, there's no development. Thank you.
There is to be a...
There's...
There you go. There is to be a tree belt put in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Holt.
Yeah, just a bit of clarification, if I can, Adam. You mentioned that the rest of the site's in the landowner's control. Is that also the applicant?
I personally am not sure. I will leave that to the agent to answer, because I hope that they have a better understanding of that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Register.
How close is the nearest bus stop to this site? The reason I'm asking is I understand there will be there are possibly I'm sorry, I'm trying to get round the fact that I've got information that I shouldn't be revealing publicly, but there might be improved bus services to Lawshall, and I just need to know.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So there are bus stops in Lawshall, however I wouldn't consider them to be at a distance which would realistically be used. I believe they're more in the main core village. Lawshall is an unusual village where it's split over multiple parts. So the bus service, I believe, as existing is not overly frequent, nor I would consider it close enough to be used by visitors to the site. I don't have a specific figure on the top of my head, but I would be satisfied that it would be too far to be relied upon.
Thank you. Councillor Wyman.
Thank you, Chair. Adam, there's a bit of tension between, in the internal consultee documents and the responses, there's a bit of tension between our food safety and licensing people and the economic development team. And I think sort of the food safety licensing piece, there's almost more questions than there sort of are answers, really, particularly in relation to the revised zoo licence regulations, which may come into place by 2030. Would we conditionalise the structures that go onto the site such that they are in compliance with the revised zoo licence regulations?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So it's a tricky one. We know that the size requirements for this type of enclosure are to be increased. However, national government has yet to publish the exact sizing that they will be. The applicant has sought independent expert advice from someone in that field who has given them this advice that this is what they would expect them to be. I think as far as conditioning to make sure they are in requirement, I don't think we'd be able to do that because we can't condition something that we don't yet know the exact requirements of. So I think if it then later came to light that they weren't in accordance, we'd then have to revisit the application and make sure that what we've got meets up to scratch with the licence. But planning and licensing are two separate vehicles. So the granting of planning permission does not necessarily secure the granting of licensing and vice versa. So we could theoretically support a application which colleagues in licensing would not support, and they could grant a licence which we would not support a planning. If that's clear.
So technically then the applicant is sort of taking a risk on what can or can't be potentially constructed, and potentially there could be enforcement issues that sit around licensing in the future.
Yes, Councillor, I would say that is correct. The applicant obviously is, to their best effort, constructed the site as to what they believe will be the requirements. However, there is always that element of risk that they might not be.
Thank you. Of course, and as I say every time, it's worth remembering we can only consider what's present today rather than speculate on what might later become legislation. So, Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry if I'm getting a little bit confused about some of the construction and things. I recall last week when I was reading the documents associated with this case, there were concerns, somebody was suggesting that the fire regulation, sorry if that's included in construction, I'm not 100% sure here, that there were concerns that there was no provision necessarily for sprinklers to be installed in case of fire, and for the rescuing of the birds should a fire break out. And given the nature of the countryside at this time of the year, the risk of fire is not insignificant. Sorry, I haven't been able to follow that up. I'm just wondering what the possibilities are for ensuring, shall we say, a little bit more than standard fire provision.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. So that would be dealt with by building control. Should we support the application, obviously a building control application would have to go in, and they would ensure that the site is up to building regulations, fire regulations, and all of everything under that sort of umbrella.
So we don't have any opportunity to influence that here.
It's a little beyond our remit. As you probably know, planning is sacrificial to most other legislations. So we can grant planning permission, but it needs all these other things. It needs a zoo licence, needs building regulations, etc., etc. So it's covered off by all that other legislation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions, please? Councillor Holt again.
Yeah, Adam, you mentioned the road and the highways, and I appreciate that Suffolk County Council haven't objected to this, but have you driven that road?
Yes, Councillor, I have when I visited the site.
Then you will appreciate the difficulty in the passing of vehicles along that road, because it is in my ward and I have driven that road, and I appreciate your presentation as presenting it in a certain way, but I would also counter-argue that there is severe issues with passing vehicles on that road. There are a couple of parking spaces.
Councillor Holt, I think you've moved into a speech rather than asking a question. The question was, have you driven that road?
Yes.
So can you leave your statement about your views to the debate?
With another question then?
If it's a question, please go ahead.
Could you just remind me of how many parking spaces you said there were within the meterage that you mentioned within your presentation, please? Because I just want to justify that in my own
Was
notes.
that passing places, did you mean?
Yes.
Passing. Okay. Yeah, passing.
That don't include private dwellings?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So within the report that has been provided to me, they have mentioned there is passing places approximately every 87 metres in a northern direction and 95 metres in a southern direction. Again, I do pick up your point about driveways, and we do not endorse the use of them, nor do Suffolk County Council.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Chair. It says about visitor facilities. Is that just going to be toilets, or I was trying to find in the report? There's not a cafe, is there, or is there? I can't remember.
Thank you, Councillor. There is proposed to be a small cafe of only a few seats, just designed for visitors whilst they are there to have a refreshment, essentially.
Okay, thank you. So it wouldn't be a cafe that people might drive to visit, to go to a cafe?
No, I don't believe it's to be anything
Okay,
on that scale,
thank
Councillor.
you.
Thank you. Anything else? All done. Okay, good. Thank you very much. So we'll now move to our public speakers. We have a number for this application. So representing the Parish Council will be Mark Anson. Speaking as an objector, Claire D'Ath. Have I said that right? Diath. Diath, thank you. Speaking for the applicant, Stuart Davis, we have our Suffolk County Council Divisional Member, Councillor John Nunn, and we'll take you in turn in that order, if that's all right. So public speakers have 3 minutes. I've got a timer. So speaking for the Parish Council, Mark Anson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillors, Lawshall Parish Council have previously raised objections to this proposal under our adopted neighbourhood plan, which centre on the lack of information on several points, including levels of traffic, expected levels of noise, times of operation and use of artificial lighting. Melford Road is, for nearly all its length, a narrow, single carriageway country lane. It would probably qualify as a quiet lane. The applicant's April speed survey identified informal passing places which are in fact private drive entrances to residents' homes, farm entrances and areas of verge that have been damaged by cars. And we submitted a comment in April objecting to this portrayal of residents' property simply to support the applicant's case. Our day-to-day knowledge and use of this road does not recognise that the 90 metres between passing places referred to earlier. We argue that most of this road's length is not wide enough to allow vehicles to pass each other easily or safely. It is a narrow country lane. Increased traffic is only going to make the condition of the verges worse, requiring increased repairs and maintenance from the cash-strapped County Highways Department. The May Transport Statement provides a figure of 10 vehicles per day using the facility. Councillors, this is clearly wrong. The email from the agent dated November 25 states that there will be 7 full-time equivalent staff. This will result in 5 staff vehicles on site, but that is based on current staff travel habits. Due to the inaccessibility of the site by other forms of travel, it must be assumed that all staff will travel by car in the future, giving up to 7 staff cars on site. The highway officer's report also appears to have overlooked the same agent's email stating that we would have no more than 30 customers at any time, and we estimate that there will be an average of 2 people per car. We make that 15 cars for visitors and not the 6 vehicles the officer refers to, giving at least 22 vehicles on site at any one time, 7 staff, 15 visitors. This all compounds the uncertainty of the proposal, and councillors, you do not know how many vehicles will be generated because nobody knows how many visitors the centre needs or are being catered for. You do not know whether this could include school trip buses or group bookings and how many experiences that may be run on any day. The Parish Council cannot ignore the unprecedented level of opposition to this application from nearby residents over the last 8 months. The number of people who have come to Parish Council meetings to object to us and to our excellent district and county councillors who regularly attend our meetings. In all the time that the council has operated, we have never seen this sustained level of opposition to any planning application before. The applicant, sadly, has never bothered...
Sorry, Mark, I'm going to have to stop you there. Your 3 minutes are up, but thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Would you be willing to take questions if members have any for you?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Members, do you have any questions for the Parish Council? No, we don't. So you're off the hook. Thank you very much. Okay. Next up, speaking as an objector, Claire Diath. You also have 3 minutes.
Good morning. I represent residents living in close proximity to the proposed zoo. We support the comments of the Parish Council and County Councillor. We have submitted numerous objections, but we only have time to talk about 4. The road is completely unsuitable. It is mostly single track, very few passing places, no footpath or cycleway. The bus stop is almost 1 mile away from the proposed site and provides a very limited bus service, which renders the proposal unsustainable contrary to LP12 and the NPPF paragraph 88 for sustainable rural tourism. The landscape. The site is currently an agricultural field, and this proposal will have an adverse impact on the character of the landscape and is contrary to policies LP17 and SP07, and also an adverse impact on the environment, specifically with our photographic evidence of badgers active on this field. Noise. There are 11 dwellings within 100 metres of the site entrance. There could be significant noise from birds and animals. For example, raccoons have a bone-chilling scream. Macaws are described as having an ear-splitting scream, often exceeding 100 decibels, as confirmed by the British Ornithology Union. In a quiet rural area, the recommendation is only 30 to 40 decibels during the day and even less at night. Visitor numbers. The applicant has been inconsistent, claiming low visitor numbers when talking about the road suitability and parking requirements, and high numbers when talking about the economic advantage. Even the EDT has commented that estimated visitor numbers would be extremely valuable, but none have been confirmed. The EDT also talks about business growth, but there is no evidence of new jobs, no consistent projected visitor numbers, no details of educational programs, economic assessment, or no spend or impact data. So to sum up, inadequate road structure, adverse impact on the landscape and environmental, including a protected species, concern over noise levels, inconsistent visitor numbers and lack of evidence of economic benefit. This proposal does not comply with the Lawshall neighbourhood plan approved by Babergh only 3 years ago. Councillors,
but you are being asked to consider a scheme with inconsistencies whose scale, operation and impacts cannot be fully verified from the evidence provided. For these reasons, we urge you, please, to refuse this application.
Thank you very much. Just under 3 minutes. Very good. Would you be happy to take questions? Are there any questions, please, to the objector? None. Okay, there we are. Thank you. So, excuse me. Next, we have speaking for the applicant, Stuart Davis. So, again, 3 minutes for you.
Good morning. Lavenham Falconry was established in 2011 and provides a range of bird of prey experiences, allowing visitors to watch flying displays, handle the birds under supervision, take photographs and learn about them from Steve and Joe's extensive knowledge and experience. The centre attracts visitors of all ages and backgrounds. Many visits are purchased as gifts or form part of a wider visit to the area, but also come from schools, youth groups or even care homes. In addition to visitor experiences, the business provides bird displays at public and private events, offers volunteering opportunities for enthusiasts and students. It participates in breeding and conservation programs of endangered birds, has displays of reptiles and other exotic animals. It facilitates the recovery of injured wild birds and operates a pest control service using birds of prey to scare pests away as an environmentally responsible alternative to other methods. From 2027, changes to zoo licensing requirements will require significantly higher animal welfare standards, including much larger aviaries and additional specialist facilities. The existing site in Monks Ely cannot accommodate these improvements, making relocation essential if the business is to continue operating. The proposed development has been designed specifically to meet these new requirements while minimising the impact on the surroundings. For several years, we have been searching for a suitable alternative site, but potential locations have proved unsuitable for various reasons, including planning constraints, ecological sensitivities, restrictive covenants, cost and access limitations. The proposed site is the most suitable that we have found. Concerns regarding nearby overhead electricity lines can be addressed through established mitigation measures such as installation of bird flight diverters or insulating the cables via UK Power Networks. Similar measures have been successfully implemented at the current site. The proposed tea room is intended to support the existing visitor experience rather than create a new destination. It will provide refreshments, a space for educational talks and shelter during poor weather, improving facilities for existing visitors. Importantly, this proposal is not intended to significantly increase visitor numbers, nor will it increase the number of birds or animals kept by the business. This is not an expansion of the enterprise, it is a relocation that will enable the business to comply with modern animal welfare standards and secure its long-term future. If the business is unable to relocate, there is a real risk that it will be unable to continue operating. This would result in the loss of local employment, tourism and leisure opportunities, educational experiences for schools and community groups.
Stuart, I'm sorry, I have to stop you there because you've hit your 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Okay, would you be happy to take questions if there are any? Any questions from members? Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, sorry. Do you currently have raccoons and macaws at Lavenham Falconry?
I don't think so, but I need to check with Joe if I may.
Right, okay. In which case my supplementary question to that would, given that the name is Falconry, and the concerns raised by local people is about the decibels of raccoons and macaws, specifically mentioned, is there a possibility of removing raccoons and macaws from the place and not having them at all, given that it's about birds of prey and falconry? Thank you.
I'm sure, but could I verify with Joe?
So unfortunately we had our raccoons
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify, because you didn't have a mic, so I'm correct in thinking no raccoons at present? And one macaw.
One macaw and a very, very tiny parrot who is the quietest parrot in the fleet. They're actually not designed for it, but we get them for that pure reason because they don't make a lot of noise.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Chair. Could I ask, what are the present visitor numbers at the site in Monks Ely, please?
They do vary from year to year, and it's very difficult to predict, as you can gather. But again, can I ask Joe for an update?
So our centre is by...
Sorry, just before you start, would you like to come down and actually speak into the mic? I'm struggling a little.
Hello, sorry. So our centre is experienced onlys. We have a maximum of 6 people flying on any session through the morning and our afternoon sessions. Over the 18 months, which is running 6 days a week, our ticketing system allows us to know that 2.2 visitors a day over an 18-month period, working 6 days a week. Now, obviously, summer is slightly more busier than our winter months, just because people don't want to be outside in the cold. But on average, we have 2.2 visitors a day.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you want to come back? Yes.
Thank you. So if you got permission for this site, would you be having school parties visiting? No. Okay.
No, so all of our schools, care homes, all those visits are completely off-site. We are literally going to be an experience centre, the same as we are now, where people have to book to come to us. And literally we still have the maximum of 6 people flying during the day. They might have other guests watching them that might come in another car, but our ticketing system allows us to put into place measures that we can sell parking spaces, so we can limit on how many cars arrive on that day. We've been running at our current site since 2013, and I can probably count on one hand how many people have turned up out of the blue, and literally it is if that. And that's how we intend on carrying on. The reason we're going for the zoo licence is so that our guests can then stay and have a cup of tea and then go home. And that's pretty much what they do now. They just go up to the tea rooms to have their cup of tea.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Register.
After moving, would you envisage any increase in employee numbers in your business?
We do, mainly because of the tea room. So currently at the current site, there isn't a tea room operated by the falconry business. It's another tenant on the site, and it's not so useful to the business. In this new site, there would be a dedicated tea room for the business, and there would be an employee there. So it's as much as anything about retaining the existing business, but adapting it for the new standards.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carruthers again.
Thank you, Chair. I've thought of another question. Considering the however many birds of prey that you have, or reptiles, or whatever, would there be anybody there when the site's closed? So at night, etc., should anything happen, i.e. a fire or anything like that?
No, there won't be. So there'll be measures put into place, use of CCTVs, modern fire things that can come to your phone to let you know when there's problems. We have an agreement that the last person will be on site about 8 o'clock. And not to be on, I think, off the top of my head, it's around 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, so that basically we shouldn't need lighting at night, only for the staff to leave in the evenings, and that's it. So yeah, there's not going to be anyone staying on site. There should be no need for it, but like I said, there's modern technology now that can come to our phones if there is any problems with site.
Okay, thank you. And again, here we go.
So if there was some kind of issue, how far away would staff be to get there if there was an issue with, I'm thinking of animal safety more than anything?
So at the moment, we are an 8-minute drive away from the current site. The one now where the proposed area to, I think it's maximum 20 minutes. But we do have volunteers that are actually in the next village. So if there is ever an emergency, we have got people who are close by that can get there.
Okay, all done? Councillor Wyman.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Just looking at the project as a whole, on the face of it, it seems to be quite a capital-intensive project. You know, you're relocating to a different location. Anecdotally, the cost of moving new buildings, etc., is quite intense. The numbers and the activity seems relatively restricted by vehicle access and all this sort of stuff, really. Have you done a sort of business plan, and have you got ready access to capital to make the project viable and sustainable?
Yes, we do. So basically where we are now, because we're only renting, with the money that basically is coming in, we are then putting towards to one side to basically build this whole project. So there is money behind it, all ready to go. We're just waiting for the go-ahead to do it.
Okay. Are we all done on questions? Can we let you stand down? Thank you very much. And finally, we're hearing from Suffolk County Council Divisional Member, Councillor John Nunn, who I think also gets 3 minutes. Is that right? Okay. Over to you, John.
Good morning. The village of Lawshall is spread over a large area with its centre located approximately 1 mile from the A134 between Sudbury and Bury St Edmunds. It has a primary school, a public house, 3 places of worship, but no shop. Audley End is situated 2 miles from Lawshall, with the nearest bus stop over 1 mile from Audley End. Access for vehicles is either from Bridge Street in the south, along a 3.5 mile single track lane with no footpath, or from Lawshall itself, again for the last mile via a single track lane with no footpath. It is stated that there are passing places along Melford Road. What the applicant counts as parking places are private driveways and field accesses. Suffolk Highways rejected this, stating that the private land is not publicly available and that
Attention, please. Can I first say that please report to Gold.
Okay. It is stated that there are passing places along Melford Road. What the applicant counts as passing places are private driveways and field accesses. Suffolk Highways rejected this stating that private land is not publicly available and that relying on it may obstruct access to private property and cause conflict with residents. None of this meets the Department of Transport's own standard for passing provision on a road such as this. Local Plan Policy LWL 21 states a new business outside the settlement boundary can only be supported where it does not adversely affect the highways and infrastructure of the area. But clearly this is not the case. Suffolk County Council's own 2023 parking guidance requires visitor attractions to demonstrate peak demand and coach servicing based on robust evidence, none of which has been provided. The site has no bus stop and no footpath. Most visitors, staff and deliveries will arrive by vehicle because there will be no alternative. This conflicts with Joint Local Plan Policy LP12 in that the site is not accessible by public transport and does not facilitate walking and cycling. Also, the NPPF at paragraph 109 also requires development to minimise the need to travel, offer genuine sustainable transport choices and this proposal fails to achieve this. Therefore, if approved, this development will increase car dependency in open countryside, in direct conflict with this council's own adopted policies on transport, access and sustainable growth. Approving it would not just be inconsistent with the evidence, it would undermine the very infrastructure and accessibility vision the council has set for itself in its own local plan.
John, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there. Even with the pause, you've had your 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Are you happy to take questions if there are any?
Yes.
Are there any questions to Councillor Nunn, please? No, there aren't. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, so we've heard from all the public speakers, and we'll now move to debate. Who would like to open the debate, please? Councillor Holt.
Yeah, I'm happy to, Chair, if that's okay. I think before we consider this application, I want to make it clear that I approach it with an open mind and have no predetermined, or not predetermined in my position. I recognise the potential benefits of the proposal, including the applicant's conservation and educational objectives, and I acknowledge the economic and tourism benefits that have been put forward. Equally, I recognise the concerns that have been raised by the Parish Council, local residents and others. My role and the committee role is not to decide this application based on popularity or opposition. Our responsibility is to consider the planning merits of the proposal against the development plan and all other material planning considerations before us. The starting point must therefore be the adopted planning policy framework. The site is outside the defined settlement boundary, and the officer's report acknowledges that the proposal represents a departure from the development plan. We therefore need to carefully consider whether the proposal complies with policy and that the development in the countryside, and if there is conflict with these policies, whether the benefits of the proposal are sufficient to outweigh that conflict. In particular, I believe we need to consider the requirements of the Lawshall Neighbourhood Plan, which forms part of the statutory development plan. Policy LWL1 establishes that the focus of new development should be within defined settlement boundaries, and that the development outside those boundaries is subject to specific requirements. Policy LWL21 is also relevant because it supports small-scale tourism, leisure development in the countryside where it is appropriate to its rural setting. The question I think we need to ask ourselves is whether this particular proposal meets that test. This is not simply a small rural business. The proposal involves significant visitor attraction, a 24-space car park, reception facilities, multiple buildings and aviaries, animal care facilities and associated infrastructure. The officer's report itself acknowledges that the proposal is larger than the neighbourhood plan may have anticipated. That does not automatically mean that the application should be refused. But it does mean that we need to carefully consider whether the proposal is generally of a scale and nature that is appropriate for the countryside location. We also need to consider the evidence before us. Concerns have been raised about the absence of firm information regarding visitor numbers and the resultant implications of traffic generation, parking, noise and other operational impacts. I think it's important we distinguish between matters which can be adequately controlled by planning conditions and matters which go to the fundamental principle and the scale of the development itself. We also need to consider the issues of accessibility. The report acknowledges that the site is not served by public transport and that there is conflict with the relevant sustainability policy. Again, that does not necessarily determine the application by itself, but it is a material consideration that needs to be properly weighed in the planning balance. Against those concerns, we have the potential benefits of the proposal, including conservation, education, employment and tourism. I believe those benefits should be given proper consideration. However, the plan and balance is ultimately for this committee to determine. I therefore suggest that the key question before us is whether these benefits clearly outweigh any conflict with the development plan, particularly given the location outside the settlement boundary and the requirements of LWL1 and LWL21. I've listened carefully to the officer's recommendation, to the representations made and the evidence presented to us today. I have not made up my mind in advance. I believe it's important that we now consider all the evidence objectively and listen to the answers to any questions that members may have. If having done so, members conclude that the proposal complies with the development plan and that the benefits outweigh the policy conflict, then permission should be granted. If, however, members conclude that the scale and nature of the development are not appropriate for this countryside location, that there is insufficient evidence to demonstrate compliance with the relevant policies, and that the benefits do not outweigh the conflict with the development plan, then the committee must be prepared to refuse the application. That, in my view, is the proper approach to this application, and I look forward to hearing the debate, importantly the views of fellow members, before reaching my final decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Holt. A comprehensive summary. Thank you very much indeed. Who would like to follow that? Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Chair. This application is a business. We, as a district, want to encourage business to expand, and listening to all the evidence, there is not the room for expansion for this business. Businesses are not static. I run a business. You have got to move on. The demands on business are getting greater, so there's a lot more financial implications with running a business. But they haven't demonstrated that they're expecting an increase in the business, but that's not possible. Businesses like, especially in Suffolk, animal businesses that we know do attract a lot of attention and a lot of traffic. So I have some concerns about this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wyman.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Holt's debate point was well made, and I think he's certainly set out quite clearly the tension that exists between the business itself, the location, and also, you know, the consideration that the locals have. It seems wrong in terms of the location, I have to say, and I completely understand why they need to move out into the countryside, but there must be better locations than 3.5 miles down a country road with no turning points, etc. Along with the sustainability and the viability of a business that needs to grow, as Councillor McLaren has said, it seems sort of a lot of tension going on. So I would be likely not to support the application.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm of the same opinion of my colleagues here. It's a wonderful idea to have this business. However, I don't believe that economically they can afford it, and therefore, without enlarging it, there's no way that they can, I don't think, be able to produce the monies that they would be looking for. So I'm afraid I cannot give this any further. I will not be voting for this to be approved. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Rees and Councillor Register.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too have listened carefully to all the arguments and recognised the tension involved in making this decision. However, I'm conscious of very similar types of business and their potential for controversy in small rural settlements. And essentially what most of them seem to be trying to do is manage numbers and disruption versus tranquility of the countryside and other factors. And in the end, it's a question, yes, do we want something that's relatively harmless versus something that could be potentially more harmful? To enable something like this endeavour to continue, it may be that we have to think in terms of, yes, Officer Mr. Lockwood, his assessment that the benefits outweigh the harm, the potential harm of this application, which of course we've already established will also be subject to planning and, building and licensing controls to go forward anyway. From a purely planning point of view, and recognising as somebody who lives in a very small rural hamlet at the, where there is a definitely single track road, where a shop is open from 9 in the morning until 6 in the evening, 7 days a week, with no restrictions on numbers, no pavements anywhere or footpaths, and limited passing spaces. I think actually the traffic issues in this situation are significantly less than many other similar kinds of business, and we need to be supporting the diversification in a measured and appropriate fashion. And I therefore would like to propose that we accept Mr. Lockwood's recommendation to approve this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to check, that's a formal proposal to grant permission as per recommendation. Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Carruthers. Thank you very much. So that's the substantive proposal on the table. We can continue to debate. So would anyone else... Oh, so beg pardon, Councillor Register, you are next. You're on my list. And then Councillor Carruthers.
Okay, so it's quite clear to me that the business has to move to meet new zoological standards. Where it moves to, is this the right location? I know that path, I know that road, having cycled up there many times. Yes, it's narrow, but that's quite the same in lots of places. So I looked at where the current businesses are located, and it doesn't have those issues because it's adjacent to the B115 and the A1141, which are both two-lane highways. So it's not, hasn't got the same issue. That's my main concern is the highways, is the actual position in relation to highways a big problem here, and I'm minded that it probably is. And the other issue is, does it conflict with the development issues? The development plan in the local neighbourhood plan? I think that's questionable. But I'm minded not to support this application purely on highways issues. I wish them luck in finding, if they have to find another location, but that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you very much. Since we have a highways representative with us, it seems a good moment to ask Liam to tell us what the highways view of traffic and access is. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Yes, we acknowledge the highway impact and the concerns by local residents. This is a rural road with no footways. It is generally narrow. There is very limited sustainable travel options, and majority will arrive by private car. It is a C-class road and 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. The applicant has submitted a traffic survey identifying that approximately 30 vehicle movements in the peak hours. This is considered very low in relation to a road of this nature. Obviously, there is a lot of frontage on Melford Road, but about 20 to 30 movements in the non-peak hours. this is deemed that the additional increase in traffic movements would not represent an unacceptable highway safety risk. We acknowledge the informal passing places that exist there currently, and we too, alongside Adam's recommendation there, that private drives would not be relied upon for that purpose. The Highway Authority has to consider the baseline, the accident history, visibility and parking. Visibility is achievable in accordance with measured speeds. Accident history is limited, with no personal injury collisions on this stretch of road between 2024 and 2015. The baselines have been considered as part of the submitted surveys, and as a result, in addition to the proposed parking provisions, is not considered to represent an unacceptable highway safety risk.
Okay, thank you very much. Very useful. Councillor Carruthers, you had a point to make.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it is a difficult one, I admit that. And while there are concerns about the highways and the number of visitors, it sounds as though the visitor numbers won't be that high and there won't be school coaches going along the road, which was one of my concerns. I was also concerned about the cafe and whether or not that would attract visitors, but it seems that that probably won't be the case. And there'll be the same number of birds except in larger aviaries because they obviously need more space to expand the cages for the birds, higher welfare for the birds. I agree with Councillor Rees that about the having businesses in the countryside, etc. And really, wherever they try to go, this is going to be an issue because the public transport situation in Babergh is appalling, to put it mildly, even in a town like Hadley, where I live. So, for that reason, yeah, that's all I want to say, really. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other contributions to debate? Councillor Holt.
Thank you. Have listened to members. They make some very valid points, I think, but to me it comes back to the development plan, Lawshall neighbourhood plan as well. I mean, we promote them, we encourage them, and in this committee we do support them. And I do find when you've got this sort of conflict with a neighbourhood plan, it's very difficult to promote such plans and then sit here and consider going against the plan. And I have that tussle with the neighbourhood plan. I have an issue with LP12 as well, but I do have issues with highways, but I forgot the gentleman's name, but there's no grounds, I don't think, you can look at this from a highways point of view. I think the road's appalling. I don't think it's suitable. The man over there thinks it does. We've got no grounds as far as I can then see for the county council to say it's fine for us to go against that. I disagree with him, but he is in his position. I sit here as merely a councillor. So I do have to weigh up policy and development plan. That's the one thing that I think I struggle with this. And having listened to people, I'm not in a position to support the application on that basis. It goes outside the development plan, against the neighbourhood plan. You could go on and quote other issues, but they're not supported necessarily by documents, policies or anything else. So that's my position on it. Thank you.
Righto, thank you very much. Anybody else to contribute to debate? Okay. Are you going to speak, Mark?
I was just going to say, obviously, I was going to ask whether Michelle could step in, just to say something about the business case and also about the businesses' predicament at the moment. So Michelle will explain.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, to you.
That's it. Thank you, Chair. In terms of the current position for this business, the applicant has made a case. They have been searching for a new location to relocate this business, not to grow the business, not to expand the business, but to simply relocate from the current location at Monksey. That relocation is entirely predicated on the changes to the zoo licences. If the zoo licence changes weren't coming in next year, the business, as I understand it, would likely stay where it is. The relationship with the Corncraft Cafe, with the other shops on the site, works really well. I've been a visitor to Levenham Falconry. I've bought gifts from them. As a business, I've supported them. We've worked alongside them. We've had conversations with them over a number of years about their challenges in relation to the new zoo licence and where they've been looking inside Babergh and outside Babergh in terms of trying to find a new location to relocate the business. The applicant has got a very strong, very clear business plan in relation to the funding and the redevelopment proposed. They've identified the money that they need in order to be able to invest in this. As Jo said, she's expecting an average of 2.2 visitors a day. This is not significant in terms of the visitor numbers coming to site, but the services that they provide off-site are significant in relation to the education and environmental protection works that they do, that their staff host from the site in terms of their operational management. And we are looking at only 7 jobs. That for us is significant. It is not just those 7 people who be employed, it's the livelihood of the 2 people who own and run the business as well. For us, within the economy team, it is not about significant additional employment. It's about trying to support and maintain an existing business within the community, which is why we've been supportive of it up until now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Useful information. Okay, any further contributions to debate, please? No? Okay, I think we can move to... Councillor Wyman, just under the wire. Go on then.
Might it be possible to ask Michelle a question, please?
I'm happy if you're happy. Yes.
Michelle, my single biggest concern is how they can run a business based on the information that's been put forward today. I find it really difficult to understand how they can comply with the new zoo regulation, licence, etc., which was a year or 2 or 3 years ahead, and at the same time build what looks like between £500,000 and £1 million worth of buildings without access to very low capital. Now, if they can explain that to me, then they might persuade me, but on the face of it, it seems almost impossible. Sorry, and I would say this is not obviously a planning issue, but it's a sustainability and a viability issue.
Okay, just before... I'm not sure that's contained within the planning application. And
no, Chair, if you look at... I understand what you're saying, but if you look at policy LP12, financial viability isn't a consideration, basically. If we were looking at a different sort of application, like a rural workers' dwelling, then there is a policy set to look at the financial case, but there isn't one here. If the business isn't viable, it's going to fail, basically. That's the test, basically. There's not a policy hook for that.
Yes, I agree. So although I understand why you've asked the question, I don't think that we can consider it under today's criteria. Thank you very much. Okay, can we go to a vote? All right, so the proposal is to grant planning permission as per the officer's recommendation, proposed by Councillor Rees, seconded by Councillor Carruthers. So I'll ask Alicia to conduct the electronic vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor McCarran, would you like me to take your vote verbally? Yes. Against. Thank you. So thank you, Chair. That makes 4 votes for, 3 against and 1 abstention. So that is carried.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I think it's testament to the difficulty of making a decision and the careful thought everyone has given it. But thank you very much for your contributions. I think this is a good moment to take a break between items, and so that our visitors who want to leave can. So can we please be back at 11:30? Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We're now on item 8B, which is application DC 250380 regarding the community centre on Timperleys in Hintlesham. The papers start on page 35 in your agenda. The case officer, working very hard today, is Adam, hoping it won't take quite as long to get through. Councillor Wyman will need to withdraw himself because he's a trustee, if you remember, trustee of the community centre. So, over to Adam.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully a much more straightforward item, though I don't want to jinx it. This is DC 250380, the community centre on Timperleys in Hintlesham. This is a full plan application for the erection of a single-storey extension to the hall lounge area with a reconfiguration of the entrance. As last time, this is to be a visual presentation to accompany my report, a springboard for discussion, and all matters to be taken in consideration with relevant planning considerations. This item is at committee today as it the red line of the application crosses over BMSDC-owned land. There are no tabled papers. The main planning issue, so I consider this to be wholly compliant with the development plan. All we're looking at is the impact upon owned land, well, not all we're looking at, but the impact upon BMSDC-owned land. This is Hintlesham and the site hatched in purple. We have Duke Street off to the southwest, and to the northwest is Hintlesham Hall, which is the Grade 1 listed building. We have a church just opposite, which I believe is Grade 2. Here we have the hall, as existing, accessed from Timperleys, which is off the main road through Hintlesham as you head out towards Hadley. This is the constraints. So the blue, purple and green are all designated ancient woodland, and the green is also a group TPO for the forest that goes around the corner. The blue dots represent listed buildings. We have green lines for the public rights of way, and the red is BMSDC owned land. So as you can see, it minorly crosses the car park along the highway edge. This is a view of the community centre as existing at the rear, looking back towards the highway, so that is in the view of the church, looking off towards the forest, the woodland area, and then a better view sort of right on the back. We then have the existing car park, a view of the site from the highway, looking back towards the car park. This is the existing plans, existing elevations, and further existing elevations, and the existing floor plan. And then we have the proposed. So the proposal is the hipped roof element projecting out the back. Not all of it, there is some of it is existing, but it's proposed to be enlarged and just a reconfiguration of the outdoor seating area. And this will involve the relocation of two disabled bays, which are to be retained but relocated in the car park. So the brown area is the addition. It is to be finished in the same material and same roof material as the existing building, so will seamlessly integrate. There we have another view. So it will not be, as is shown here, it will not be visible from the front. You'll probably catch a glimpse of it as you head off along the road, but if you actually stood right at the front of the building, you wouldn't be able to see it. And then the grey shaded area is the extension, which is to be a bar area, a lounge area, some more seating for the community centre. So we've received 0 public representations for this. All of the consultees, environmental health, highways, fire and rescue, archaeology, communities and ecology are happy with this, subject to condition. So my recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to condition, as the scheme is wholly policy compliant with the development plan.
Thank you very much, Adam. There is the opportunity to ask questions on the report if you wish. No, good. We do, however, have a public speaker, very excitingly, Councillor Mark Rowland, who is ward member for Hintlesham. And you have 3 minutes should you need them.
Thank you, Chair. No, it won't take that long. Just as the ward councillor, I just wanted to give my view on it is I fully support this because whenever I've been to Hintlesham Village Hall, their bar area is tiny but always very busy. And the logistics of the residents within Hintlesham and Chattersham, the quantity has grown by 200 since the last development of it, and the age bracket has come down, so it's more sociable in that sense. So personally, I think they need the extra space, they need the outside space, especially in months like we're having at the moment. Lovely to sit outside, they just don't have the room, and I think that they can do nothing better than expand this village hall and the entranceway to it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Short and exceedingly sweet. In fact, short-changing. You should have had 5 minutes, but you didn't need them, so that's fine. Okay, we can have a debate if you would like one. Would anyone like to open the debate on this application? Councillor Holt, Councillor Osborne, Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to see something fully compliant. Thank you for that. I'm happy to propose we accept the officer's recommendation. I think it's a benefit to, obviously, the villagers and the community. I'm all for that. I think the more we do for our communities, the better. We let them grow, we let them prosper, and we have to provide the facilities for that to happen. So very happy to support this application. Would ask for a seconder.
Okay, so that's a formal proposal to grant permission. A seconder, Councillor Rees, slightly quicker ahead of the others. Thank you very much. So, Councillor Osborne, would you like to contribute to debate?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I absolutely agree with Councillor Holt. I have been to the Hintlesham area many times in that area, and it would be a bonus to have that extended, as Councillor Rowland said. It needs that bit extra. I found it for meetings that I've been attending there a long period of time ago. It was a bit cramped there, so that will be a great bonus and a tick in the box. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rees, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I've been to the community centre a couple of times, and I recall meeting a very nice spaniel in the very, very small bar. I haven't looked at the construction in great detail. What I would perhaps request is, could they put some kind of increased sound insulation between the bar and the meeting room and the main hall, because the meeting room is very noisy when the main hall is being used for exercise, dance classes, and therefore not suitable as a meeting room. But having said that, that's just an aside. I'm very happy to see this extension, and therefore very happy to support Councillor Holt's proposal to accept and grant planning permission. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, and as ever, I'm not sure the matter of insulation is in today's application, but I'm sure it will be logged as a request. Councillor Register.
I've been to several meetings at that village hall. I reiterate what Councillor Rees just said, in that we had a meeting there, and next door they were doing dancer-size, I think. And it was, it needs sound insulation. But on the other hand, the other side of it is every time I've been there were people sitting outside having a cup of tea because there wasn't sufficient room in the bar. So therefore, I've got to support this application.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, Hintlesham is a very vibrant community, and every time I've been to Hintlesham, it energises you, actually, so I'm happy to support this application.
Thank you. I think the mood of the meeting is pretty clear. Can we go straight to a vote? Is that all right? So the proposal is to grant permission as detailed in the officer's report, proposed by Councillor Holt, seconded by Councillor Rees. So I'll ask Alicia to conduct the vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. That makes 7 votes for, so that is unanimous.
Super. Thank you very much indeed. Commendably quick, which is great. So we're now going to move to our third item.
Chairman, if I may, I'm sorry about Mr. Findlay's asked me. Switched on. Would the committee mind awfully pausing while I'll sit at the back with him and we'll sort it out quickly? No more than 5 minutes. I'm sorry to delay the committee.
No, that's fine. Absolutely fine. Please go ahead. So we'll just take a pause in place for a couple of minutes. Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone. Welcome back. We're now on item 8C, application DC 2601371, regarding the first floor offices, Unit 6, Bournemouth Road Industrial Estate, Sudbury. The papers start on page 49 in your agenda pack. I'll invite now the case officer, Finlay Mackenzie, to introduce this to the committee, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Babergh Committee. It's my first in Babergh, done a few in Mid, but first in the other district. So this is an application, this is a prior approval application. I will get to that shortly, but it's in Brundon Lane in Sudbury, so just over the river. And the reason it's here today is because it's owned by Babergh District Council. As you can see on the map here, the map isn't working. It's in the red zone, which we own. This is a map of Sudbury. So there's the marketplace with the church and the statue of Thomas Gainsborough. There's Ballingdon Bridge. It crosses the Stour, and the site is there in orange. This is a closer view of the site, outlined in orange with the purple hashing. There you go. That is so to the west is the Stour Valley enterprise or industrial unit. So there's sort of two different halves of the wider industrial site. Here is another row of other industrial units. So there's quite a mix of different uses. And above is a vehicle repair shop as well. And below, as you can see, is a sort of row of residential terrace dwellings, as well as some detached dwellings to the west as well. So here's a map of the constraints. There's a little bit of the conservation area that pokes onto this map, but that's not really of much concern to this application. The brown is the settlement boundary, so we are within the settlement boundary for Sudbury. And this is a map of the industrial estate as well, so you can see to the south are the sort of semi-detached and terrace dwellings. Here's a map given from the applicant of their amenity area and the dedicated parking. Here's the red line of the site, so it's just that bottom rectangle of the wider industrial unit there. And again, this is the proposed / existing elevations. The only thing that would change is that new windows would be installed on the first floor. This is the existing and proposed ground floor and the proposed first floor. So you can see there would be a row of bedrooms, toilet, living facilities, kitchen, and then some more toilets on the east side. So consultee comments. So the Town Council recommended that prior approval would be required. Environmental Health recommended that a full planning application would be needed. The Economic Development team said that the site was very important for industrial use within the district and would undermine the industrial estate in the longer term, and no objections were raised by highways or environmental health land contamination. I'll get on to the comments from the ecologist. So earlier this week, I received updated comments from the ecologist as we've received the information that they had requested. So reason for refusal number 3 has been removed, and section 6 of the officer report was amended in the table papers to reflect the updated stance of the ecologist against the submitted information. And earlier this week as well, I had one additional representation of support. So there's only one neighbour comment had been submitted, which is this one. It's a nearby business owner who supported the application. They considered that the proposal would not harm local businesses, and the conversion would make use of an empty space within the building. History. So last year there was an application on this site for prior approval, so the same process. It was refused, but it had not been identified at that time that the site was on council-owned land, so it did not previously go towards Babergh Committee, and we apologise for that. But it was refused due to noise, so the noise impacts on the intended occupants of the dwelling. So this is not, as Adam's too, this is not a planning application, this is a prior approval. So I believe I spoke to Greg, and he did a Telegraph poll prior approval a couple of committees ago. So it's a similar sort of process to that. National government grants the principle of development, and then we assess only specific prior approval matters. So the joint local plan, or I know Sudbury doesn't have a neighbourhood plan, but a neighbourhood plan, those policies are not considered as part of prior approval. It's only the matters listed by the national government. So, yeah, again, we can only assess limited matters, so transport, contamination, flooding, noise, impact on occupiers, and the provision of natural light, and whether it's in an important industrial area. The principle is established by PD rights, and we cannot assess other matters that fall outside of the scope of the prior approval matters. Prior approval decisions must be based solely on the criteria of the prior approval matters, whereas planning applications are determined against neighbourhood plans, the local plan. So in this case, the prior approval matters for this application are the transport impacts, contamination risks, flooding risks, impact of noise on the intended occupiers, the provision of adequate natural light, and the impact on the intended occupiers of the development of the introduction of residential use in an area the authority considers to be important for general or heavy industry, waste management, storage and distribution, or a mix of such uses. So for this application, it was determined that the prior approval did not meet points D or G for very similar reasons, but again, two separate reasons due to the way that prior approval works. So point D, the site is in an active industrial commercial estate with multiple noisy neighbouring uses. The environmental health team reviewed their submitted noise report, and they found that it could only be achieved with the windows closed and mechanical ventilation. The guidance expects dwellings to achieve acceptable noise levels with the windows open. The occupancy restriction would not address noise from surrounding businesses, as these are beyond the applicant's control. Insufficient evidence has been provided to demonstrate that other future occupiers would be protected from these adverse noise impacts. So, therefore, the proposal does not comply with point D. And again, point G, the site is in the middle of the industrial estate, and it has been identified by our economic development team as important for those uses. The economic development team also confirmed that there is a sort of a shortage of employment sites across Babergh, and that change of use to residential within an industrial estate would be harmful to sort of the health of the industrial estate as well. That matter does fall outside of prior approval, but it was raised by the economic development team. And they also, environmental health again, raised concerns as previously noted. And the recommendation that the occupation be restricted does indicate that the proposal is wider, is unsuitable for unrestricted residential occupation, as anyone who was to live there in the future, they would still be within the wider industrial estate. So originally, within the report, there were 3 reasons for refusal. However, due to the updated comments from the ecologist, reason for refusal number 3 has been removed. So the 2 reasons, these have been summarised from the report, but essentially they fail to demonstrate that someone who lives there would not be sort of harmed by the noise and surrounding impacts from the commercial estate. And then again, so for point G, that the introduction of residential within the industrial estate would be harmful to the intended occupiers who would live in the industrial estate. So these are the site photos when I visited earlier in the year. That is looking directly at the site. So the site we're looking at is just the first floor. So those sort of windows below where it says TTT motorcycles. This is from the corner. So again, it would be just the first floor. I believe those windows on the first floor would be for some toilets. And again, you might not be able to see it because it's in the shadow, but there is a sort of external staircase which reaches that first floor. And again, this is the view from the road. So again, it's that first floor windows there. So those three on the left-hand side would be the bedrooms, and then like living room and kitchen would be further to the right. So here, that's the steps up to get in. That would be the front door, basically, to the house. And again, this is another view from, across the road. And this morning or last night, the agent sent some photos in. Usually we wouldn't permit that. I thought, in the sort of spirit of generosity, I would allow these photos to be shown. So there are some pictures that the agent would like to, when they speak, to have access to. So I thought I'd be kind and show the pictures. But there you go, just for reference there. I will come back to those later on. So in conclusion, this is Class MA prior approval, conversion of offices to a self-build dwelling. As self-build is not one of the prior approval matters, cannot be considered as part of our assessment either. But the recommendation is to refuse for the two previous reasons given. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Finlay. Very clear. So just to be absolutely clear to everyone, remember this is a prior approval application, so the list of things we can consider is even more restricted than for a normal planning application. Are there any questions on detail or for clarification to the case officer, please? Councillor Wyman.
Chair, could we go back to slide 24, please, Finlay? Ah, sorry, no. No, sorry. Well, it is on 24, but go forward again. There we go. The exhaust that's coming out of the downstairs building that's on the left-hand end of that, what is that for?
I believe from the submitted floor plans, that is the kitchen that is used for the cafe, the TTT Motorcycles Cafe.
So that's likely exhausting sort of fats and various other things from the kitchen?
Yeah, it's a sort of kitchen extraction fan, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on the detail of the report? Councillor Holt.
Just one thing. On the paper, on the first page, it says recommend and refuse prior approval. Under that, it says application to determine if prior approval is required. I think that's a little bit messy. I understand when we get to the bottom of the paper, it's more specific. But what you're actually saying is, does it need prior approval? Yes, it does. That's it. Not we're refusing prior approval. Do you know what I mean? I just think the wording at the top of the paper is not as specific as when you get to the recommendation. Perhaps in future we could look at that.
Okay, so properly, prior approval required and refused, basically. You should say both of those things.
Determine that prior approval. If I need to add, Chair, yes, the committee, it is recommended that the committee decide that prior approval is required in this case, and having made that decision, decline to give it.
Okay, clear. Thank you. Any other questions, please? Councillor McLaren.
Just interested, is the cafe still operating?
Yes, so the intended occupants above would be the owners, operators of the cafe below.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. None. Right, so we'll move on to public speakers. We have two people representing the applicant today. So strictly speaking, you've got 3 minutes split between you, if that's all right. So we've got Dean Pearce and Justine Gibbs. Okay, so if you're ready, we'll start. Okay.
Good morning, Chair, councillors. The planning officer recently stated to me that each case should be judged on its merits when explaining inconsistency of decision making between this and the previous identical application. That proposal also should have been heard by this committee, but erroneously was not. In that case, lack of noise and odour reports was the sole reason for refusal. At a cost of over £5,000 to the applicant, taking months to raise, these were completed and resubmitted. For the record, the officer's report is incorrect throughout in stating that windows must be kept shut at all times. This is unequivocally wrong, and refusal on this basis would be clear maladministration. See 4.1 of the noise report. Class MA does not require provision of amenity space or parking. In 2015, a major residential development was built directly adjacent to this very estate, where there is a consistency in decision making. In the last 12 months, not one representative from this authority has met the applicants, understood their needs, or stepped foot inside the building to inspect the site, so robustly now defended. The offices have been vacant for the last 10 years. As new leaseholder, the applicant has confirmed they shall not sublet the offices further, so they'll be vacant for the next 10 years also. The criteria of Class MA have been met. The Council's case is fundamentally flawed. The committee has the power to profoundly transform this family's lives today. The choice, a secure, affordable, sustainable home or dilapidated, vacant office space for the next decade. I implore you, resolve this matter with accuracy, consistency, empathy and upon its merits. Thank you.
Good morning. We have 3 children. Both Ben and I live with disabilities. When Ben has an MS flare, he loses sight, meaning it is difficult to drive in or leave the children. Living on site would make a difference to our daily lives. It would reduce the physical and financial pressures we face, help us remain independent and reduce our reliance and stretch public services, benefits and on charities. It also mean that we can respond immediately when our business needs us and require less car use. We'd be reinvesting in our business, creating more local job offers and continue supporting the people who rely on us. It's become a genuine community hub with thousands of followers. We help people gain employment through CBT training, welcome a disabled group, host events for veterans, charities and provide a safe space for isolated, elderly and young people, including school, workplace experience. We've invested considerable amounts of our own money and time to satisfy every requirement, money we simply don't have and time of which a child has now lost a school placement. We're not asking for special treatment. This is a necessity and not a luxury to support disabled people and our family to make facing such limitations. I grew up on a 3rd floor flat in Crouch End, North London, above a cafe and a newsagent's. And as an ex-nurse, social prescriber and now psychotherapist, my history of setting up a man shed, providing allotments, risk assessing, installing mobility equipment for independence. So I ask you to think about the many you know living with the conditions that impact them in all aspects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we need to clarify this point about the requirement as to whether windows should be open or closed when a noise check is made. Are you able to do that for us?
Yeah, so the comments from the Environmental Health Officer who reviewed the noise report explicitly states that where is it again? The noise assessment concludes that the noise source is road traffic and that good internal values can be achieved with standard double glazing and trickle ventilation. However, these levels can only be achieved if windows are kept closed at all times. The professional practice guidance on planning and noise states that design of dwellings should aim to meet internal noise levels with windows open. Where this is not possible, a suitable justification would be required. It would therefore be a planning decision as to whether you consider this to be justified.
Of the agenda pack under environmental health response. Thank you. Okay. It's not really, yeah. Right, so I understand another email's been received from whoever did the noise test, arguing with the assessment of the Environmental Health Officer.
I have not received that email myself. So obviously, any time up until 30 seconds ago, I had no access to that information.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your point, but we need to consider matters that are presented to the committee. And I don't think producing a fresh document during the committee meeting is acceptable, I'm afraid.
Stated in my
well, maybe it is, but nonetheless, it's a fresh document which hasn't been seen by the officers or indeed by committee members before the start of the meeting. So I don't think we can accept the document as such. Okay, but I understand that you contest the interpretation.
The report does, yeah.
Yeah. If you'd let me finish, please. You contest the interpretation of the noise assessment regulation, shall we say. Okay, so we understand that. Thank you very much. Okay. Would you be happy to take questions from members if there are any? Members, do you have any questions for the applicant, please? Councillor Holt.
Personally, I'd like a little bit more understanding of what we're looking at, because at the moment we've got a map with an industrial estate with a red line that's an industrial building. We've seen some photos of a motorcycle shop down underneath. I'm getting the feeling I need a bit more understanding of what it's about, and from what I gather it's about a living accommodation above a business that's leased from us, not living accommodation subletting out. So I think it changes the tone slightly of what this application could be about. Can you just verify that is the case? It's not going to be sublet, it's not going to be individual moving in, paying rent and things like that. I just need a sort of understanding of what we're considering.
Okay, thank you.
Could ask our legal advisor just to give some clarification to that, because it's all about land use, Councillor.
Yes, I mean, if this were allowed, then that it would enable this part of commercial premises, currently Class E, to become a residential unit, flat, and anyone could live there. So that's the point of an issue.
Okay, is that all right, Councillor Holt?
I understand Ian's point of view. Could I just get clarification from the applicant? That is what they're looking to do. But I take Ian's point of view, as I think we all do as well. But I just want both sides, if I can, please.
Okay. Just before we go to the applicant, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, please, Ian, is that allowing this prior approval would change the class of the building forever, not just for the current occupant's use. Is that right?
It would run with the land as planning permissions and or prior approval, permitted development rights, or things allowed under the permitted development rules usually do. It would be that new unit would become C3, a residential unit of accommodation, unless and until somebody else gets permission for something else for it.
Okay, thank you. Right. Understood. So can I ask you to say a little bit more about what you intend to do with the first floor accommodation? Is that all right?
So it is solely the upper floor. It doesn't cover the whole of the building, as you see. So underneath is a cafe. It's only in use actually up until about 2:30 of an afternoon, because that's when food stops anyway. So we are downstairs working of a week and weekend. So the upstairs is purely residential only, and for us and our children, it is for sole use of us. So that's all it's for. They're very big rooms, so even though it says offices above, they actually don't look like offices. There's normal toilets upstairs, it's just very, very large rooms that's actually up there already. So very limited change would happen, but just to make it homely, obviously. And it just requires that both my partner and my partner has MS, like I said. Myself, I have a stoma bag. I've got a daughter that's also partially sighted. It's a very well-lit light on either side. It's got two entrances, actually. So even though you saw the side entrance, that's actually the old exit for the offices. There's actually an entrance going into the building, so as you walk into the shop, we've got a very normal looking face of the shop. There's a right-hand door that actually takes you up very large steps, very wide, normal kind of office steps, as you'd find, and that takes you upstairs into the unit. So there's 2 exits. We've already thought about fire escape and things like that. So, yes.
I think, Chair, that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions to the applicant? Councillor Wyman?
Chair, may I ask the legal officer a question, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Ian, I'm starting to feel quite conflicted because I'm the lead member for planning for the District Council, and I do understand the lease terms and conditions that apply to this building, so maybe I shouldn't be involved in the decision-making process.
I wouldn't, well, government.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Wyman, I'd probably appreciate a bit more clarity about your role as lead member for assets and how that involves you in this application.
I'm familiar with the lease terms and conditions that apply to this building, and it conflicts with what I know of the property portfolio and how we would likely deal with it.
I think if you've had involvement in this property ahead of it coming to committee, then it might be best for you to recuse yourself from the meeting, if that makes sense.
I apologise, I should have realised before I listened to the case that it would conflict with some of the information that I have.
That's fine, thank you. No, I appreciate you raising it, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. Thank you very much. No, don't worry. That's fine. We'll carry on. Right. Any other questions to the applicant? No. Okay, thank you very much. You can stand down. We're now going to go to debate. Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to say that when I first saw this application, my immediate response was, who's going to live there? Is the applicant going to live there themselves, you know, as far as acceptable dwellings are concerned? It makes me think of my own living conditions and cases from decades ago where committees and councillors and officers in Hull decided to demolish a whole street, which was then taken to the European Court of Human Rights, and it was destroying an entire community because very well-made terraced houses were deemed unsuitable, unfit for human habitation when the people who were living in them found them perfectly acceptable, perfectly delightful places to live, and well within what they required, and were happy to stay, did not want to be relocated. And so when I saw that the applicants are themselves wanting to move into this place, and when they eventually leave, it'll be up to whoever decides whether they would want to live there or not as well, as far as acceptable living conditions are concerned. I have to say that I'm minded to say, well, yeah, it's a very small portion of potential industrial area that is going to be lost. When I understand in our own property portfolio, we have rather a lot of unoccupied buildings for industrial purposes. So I have to say that I'm minded to propose that we do not accept the officer's recommendation for refusing prior approval and refusing the application. As someone who has family members who are both paraplegic and suffering from MS, the fact that these are people who are trying to maintain their business and their lives with as much stability and independence as possible should be applauded and not squashed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, just to clarify, that's a formal proposal to, contrary to officer's recommendation, to grant prior approval. Okay. Is there a seconder for that proposal, please? There is no seconder. So I'm afraid that the proposal can't go forward. Okay, so you understand why, I dare say. Okay, thank you. So we can continue with the debate. Would anyone else like to contribute to the debate? Councillor Register.
I've visited TTT motorcycles once, and I used the cafe and had a quite an interesting look around the business, and it's well known, and it's well known among the local motorcycling community, of which I'm sort of not a member, but I have got lots of friends who are. And I appreciate that you've got downstairs, you've got motorcycle sales, you've got motorcycle repairs, you've got a cafe, but upstairs I can't see that you have much need for a large offices, and therefore it would be more sensible it would, on the face of it, look sensible to use it for accommodation. However, balancing out that, this is an industrial estate in Sudbury, and and we need employment areas in Sudbury. It's one of those red lines that Sudbury Town Council don't like crossing, and I don't like crossing, unfortunately. And and the other point is the noise issue. I know some of the other businesses on that estate. There's a stonemason, which might be noisy at times, but there are other businesses. I haven't been up there for a while, and there may be more noisier businesses, I don't know. But certainly motorcycle repair businesses, when you're testing engines, gets quite noisy. I am aware that if the applicant is living upstairs, they're going to be used to the motorcycle noise and not mind it at all. But we have to consider the future. And if you give up the lease on the property, the next lessee has got a problem, because the upstairs is now would now be accommodation rather than business use. So just on the principle that we shouldn't create that problem, I would propose that we accept the officer's recommendation of prior approval is required and refused. Because I'm reluctant to do it, because I understand your business, but we can't create a precedent, especially in Sudbury, which has few if any employment areas. That's my position.
Okay, thank you. So to clarify, that's a formal proposal to follow officer's recommendation to refuse prior approval. Do we have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor McLaren. Thank you. We can continue with the debate if anyone wishes to do so. Councillor Carruthers, yeah, you were next. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I totally appreciate the need of the owners or the occupiers to have a flat above their business, and but the problem is it's employment land, as Tim has said, so it would go against the rules, as it were. I mean, what would be brilliant is if they could live there, and then when they want to move out, it just goes back to being offices, but I appreciate that can't really happen, can it? No. Yeah, not under prior approval, so yeah, so it's a shame, because I appreciate the need. I really do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other contributions to debate, please? Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I agree with Councillor Register and Councillor Jane Carruthers. I would just like to express, having read the recommendations, I think our officer has actually dotted the I's, crossed the T's, and it's an excellent presentation. Thank you very much, Finley, and thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks for that. Any further contributions to debate? Councillor Holt.
Yes, I'm conflicted as well, to be honest, from the personal point of view and the policy point of view, but unfortunately I have to come down on the policy point of view. It's industrial use. I can't allow a precedent of it being changed in any shape or form, unfortunately. I wish there was a way that Babergh could work with the applicant and possibly do something, but yeah, it's industrial use and I just can't go against the plan policy. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor McLaren.
Yes, just to confirm that once we've set the precedent, then any future applications are going to be supported, aren't they, to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, can we proceed to the vote then? So the proposal which has been seconded is, as per officer's recommendation, to refuse prior approval for change of use. And I'll ask Alicia to conduct the electronic vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Thank you, Chair. Since Councillor Wyman has left proceedings, that's 7 votes total, so therefore that is 6 votes for the officer recommendation and 1 against.
Okay, thank you very much. So that is the end of our business as scheduled for today. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions. The next meeting of the Planning Committee is scheduled for the 5th of August, when there are items on the agenda. So I'll see you then. And I'll now formally close the meeting at 12:24 p.m.